Everyone, welcome back to another mainly preview video for 70.3 St. George. However, I've thrown in a lot of headlines as well into this one because there's a lot I need to catch up with you on. So much happening in the pro tri world right now, but I don't know if you guys are like me and have been seeing lots of clips pop up about St. George and the history of this race and just how many great battles we've had before. This one in particular of Sam Long and Lionel Sanders has got me fired up to see them race again this weekend, as well as so many other great guys and gals on the start list. It's going to be a perfect way to close out this destination. I'm so sad that they weren't able to get this renewed and the partnership to continue. Hopefully we see it one day again in the future. And I'm so jealous to all of you who are going to race or have raced this one in the past. To me, it was always just something that was on my future bucket list races and I would get to it one day, but I shouldn't have waited. But we're going to start off first with the Pro Series race in Venice that just happened. Rico Bogan going off the front there, 370 watts, splitting a 153, 4 minutes faster than everyone else. Absolutely insane. This guy putting his hat in the ring right now to be the best rider in the sport. He's on that new Canyon this year. Seems like he's much more aerodynamically optimized, but he only gets to be in that ring, in my opinion, if you've seen my other video on this before, if you can run off of a bike like that. And he wasn't able to there. He wasn't able to do it in Singapore either. So we'll have to wait and see till San Francisco if he can pull that off. But in that same race, speaking of San Francisco coming up, by the way, Panagiotis Batatos won his 5th race now in a row at the middle distance. He only really started racing them last year, but wow, another insane run split, 107. He was just ahead of Cameron Main, who had a really breakthrough race there. But yeah, I think he's just one of those guys we're gonna have to watch out for all year long. He has now appeared on the T100 wildcard list for San Fran, so he'll be fully put to the test there to see how good he is. But he actually didn't run the fastest split of the day. That went to Pierre Lecour with a 106. Now, a lot of people saying this course was just a little short. It was a pretty flat course too, but it had a lot of dead turns in it. Didn't look absolutely the fastest course out there, and it's still an absolutely unbelievable run split. And he has now got his 70.3 world spot. He's also going to be racing Aix-en-Provence in France coming up the following weekend. So I can't wait to see more from this French athlete, adding to the likes of Leo Berger, who we already have doing so well in the middle distance. But arguably for me, the bigger headline came out of the women's race where Solveig Lovseth was only 20 seconds off the 70.3 world record there. She had a 116 run following an insane 206 bike. I think she, like Batatos, is the one to watch this year, up and coming. She's only 25 years old. That's scary. And she said her full focus this year is she's going to be chasing Kona, and in order to do that, she's got a race at Ironman Hamburg coming up next. Can't wait to see the full start list because I'm really curious to see if Anne Haug is doing it. She's been so quiet all year long, but she finally showed up at the local Club La Santa race there. She took the win with a really impressive 10K, like 33-minute split there, unbelievable. But yeah, she's not racing Ironman Lanzarote, which means that Hamburg's probably her best option to qualify. There's a couple others she could do, but it does sound like she's doing Challenge Roth now. It was kind of revealed in this advertisement she put up on her profile, which I haven't seen announced anywhere else. So yeah, if she does Hamburg, it'll be really hard to back up and do Roth just a month later. So yeah, Anne Haug, very intriguing schedule. Keep an eye out for her. But Solveig Lovseth, cannot wait to see that debut in Hamburg. But outside of those headlines from that race, we also had the news that the PTO is going to be racing in Australia, finally. So many of you have called out for this one. I think it's the perfect place for a PTO race. So many triathlon mad people over there. And I really feel like the pro Aussie athletes get the short end of the stick with races. So it's good to see them getting one on home soil. Although it is the same weekend as 70.3 Geelong, which we saw as a Pro Series race this year, as well as Hell of the West. So yeah, interesting they decided on those dates, but yeah, they've only got so many to work with. Then quickly, I have to go back and mention Alex Yee's marathon because I brought it up in the lead up to that race, and I just thought it was so impressive that he managed that time. 14th place in that most stacked marathon field we've ever seen on a hot day was super impressive. But then I found out afterwards that Hugo Milner was actually pacing him. He's a fellow short course triathlete, relatively new to the short course side of things, but he was a big runner before that. And he paced that group that Alex was in, the 2:08:30 group, up until 30 kilometers, and he did it just fine. So another one to really keep an eye on in the future. He's also the fastest ever 10K runner off the bike in triathlon currently, with like a 28:30 something, I believe. So he currently isn't the only one in triathlon with that caliber of run speed. But then more big news came out recently about Alex Yee in the Triathlon Hour podcast with him, and thought it was really interesting, first of all, that Jack asked him, does he think he's going to be doing more running events or going all in on this because of how well he did? But he said everything he thought of during the build-up was towards triathlon. How could this improve how well he does in the three sports? And then he went on to further say he is getting a TT bike coming up real soon, and he's got his eyes on the T100 racing. And for me, that means potentially a debut in London. It just makes sense. Coming up at the beginning of August, you know, it just makes sense with him being a London boy, obviously with the London Marathon as well. And just when I look at the calendar, I think it would fit in there nicely for him. But speaking of that T100 London race, sadly, this might be the next time we see Hayden Wilde race. He suffered a really bad bike crash that resulted in broken scapula, broken ribs, an injured lung, and has left him having to stay in Japan, where he was at the time, to get the treatment he needs, as he was unable to travel. And that's really not a good sign if you're unable to travel for 3 weeks, he said. It's just doing some little research on those injuries. It seems like 12 weeks is the minimum probably for him to come back, which kind of puts him around that T100 London time, which is really sad because he has said that he wanted to get greedy this year and chase racing as much as he could. He was clearly in some good form off of Singapore. He was wanting to chase the WTCS title, and then literally the day before that crash, he ran a 27:39 10K PB. He almost broke the New Zealand national record. That's the fastest time any triathlete's ever run a 10K, which is an insane stat to have. That means he's faster than Alex Yee's ever run a 10K. So yeah, just gutted for the guy and hope he comes back quick. And then also, he's not the only one who suffered a bad crash. Kate Curran as well said she suffered a freak crash, and she said she's dealing with the emotional and mental side of it a lot now, which is something we quickly forget when we hear about the physical injuries. But yeah, it can be so tough mentally, especially if this is their entire livelihood. And Kate Curran as well, she was really breaking through last year, and I'm gutted to see that. Hoping both of them recover quick. But switching gears back to racing, couple start lists I wanted you to be fully aware of coming up this month. First off is the Challenge Championships, which I think is kind of going to get overshadowed by T100 San Francisco coming up, as well as St. George and all these other great races, but it has a really good start list, and Panagiotis Batatos is on there as well. So we'll get to see him test it out against the likes of Frederick Vonk, Justus Nieschlag in the lead up to San Fran to see how well he does against that caliber of athlete. On the women's side, you got Sarah Perez-Sala, some other big names there too. So keep an eye on that one. It's always a good race that's broadcast by Challenge as well. But then T100 San Fran.
Smith is putting down the hammer. Oh my goodness, this is the best finish we have seen. Rico Bogan's.
This is where finally the full start lists are now out, and I'm so excited to see Morgan Pearson finally kick off his season here, as well as Kyle Smith, who missed out in Singapore, got a heat injury in the lead up to that, but he's back for another sprint finish with Rico Bogan and Martin Van Riel. But they're also joined by a big list of wildcard athletes, including Panagiotis, Jacob Burtwistle, who's been doing so well recently, Kenji Ninner, short course athlete who just recently raced in Geelong. We got Mark Dubrick, Justin Miralle, Aaron Royal, and Jamie Riddle. And on the women's side, oh man, so glad and relieved to see Flora Duffy's name back on there. After suffering with glute and hip issues in Singapore, really wanted her to do well. But outside of her, we have the showdown again between Ashley Gentle, Julie Durant, and Taylor Knibb. Both Julie and Ashley really suffered in Singapore. We know Taylor skipped out, and now she'll be racing this coming off of Ironman Texas. So I think this could be the closest race to Taylor Knibb just yet, even though she really did dominate it last year. But then we've now got Kate Waugh, who had the biggest winning margin ever in the women's race in Singapore. So it's going to be a good one. They also have a ton of wild cards. We got Victoria Lopez, Alicia Pacheras, Hannah DeVette, Kaidi Kiviobia. We often see the one that's catching my eye is Daniela Kleiser, who just ran a 1:13.5 marathon split in Valencia to take the win there. So keep an eye out on her. Her swim's a little bit weaker, but geez, her run is unbelievable. In my opinion, it's T100's best race on the circuit right now. And if you're wondering how they're picking all of those wildcard slots this year, well, there is more of a system this year with the T100 Contender Series rankings, which are now live on the T100 website, by the way. I'll link that in the description. I'm not sure why they didn't put it on the PTO Stats website with all the other rankings. I wish it was there. But yeah, it's on the T100 Triathlon website. A little bit confusing. But yeah, 3 wildcards will be selected from those rankings first, and then it's discretionary invitational slots. And if you've never heard of these Contender Series rankings, let me break it down a little bit for you. The top 5 ranked contenders at the end of the year will be offered T100 contracts. There's now an additional $560,000 in prize money on offer for the top 80 athletes in these contender rankings, the top 40 in the women and the top 40 in the men. It is calculated by the 5 best scores from the PTO World Ranking System to determine their contender ranking, which I think is interesting. I think it's actually how the PTO World Ranking should be as a whole. When I built my own rankings, we used the 6 best races, so I hope they move there overall. I think it's a much fair representation of an athlete's ability. But there has been some adverse reaction to this Contender Series ranking, and the one in particular was that if you were offered a contract for this year and you turned it down, you're no longer eligible for it this year, which I think is a bit of a harsh punishment, and we'll have to wait and see if somebody like Kat Matthews, Laura Phillip, someone with their caliber wants to race the series in 2026. What do they do? Are they just going to be offered a hot shot? Or are they going to be offered nothing at all? That to me could be really interesting. And then finally, the last thing I have to talk to you about before St. George is the Kona news. Obviously, I broke the news when it was right away and fresh, but there's been a lot of reaction to it. And to be honest, it's been mostly in accordance to Ironman's estimation. Unsurprisingly, people are in favor of going back to Kona, bringing the men and the women back together. Not a shock at all, but there's been a good amount of people who are seriously upset about this, and they believe it's going backwards for Ironman. 2 main reasons for that have to really do with the women's racing, and it's the fact that Ironman put so much into giving women their own day, the equal broadcast coverage, media, sponsor attention, and most importantly, equal slot allocation, which was fought for so many years for the women's pro field to have equal number of slots, but then to get it for the age groupers felt like such a step forward for so many people. But Ironman couldn't fill all these slots and get everybody to go, and now going back to Kona, going back to mostly proportional, this means there is going to be a lot less slots on offer for the women, and that the women, especially in the age groups that are deeper and faster, have reduced slots now, and that means some of these seriously fast women who deserve to go to Kona arguably will have to miss out, with oftentimes just 1 slot per age group being offered. So it sounds like to me Ironman at the very least needs to fulfill their promise of this equal coverage and broadcast in Kona. Then the second thing is, I think they really need to relook at this slot allocation. They really need to organize it by time or the size of the age groups or something like that. Otherwise, this could really hurt them in the long term if this goal of Kona, this dream, is unattainable for so many. Okay, finally diving into the St. George preview, and this is brought to you by 80/20 Endurance. It's an amazing coaching certification program that I found in the lead up to wanting to start to do more coaching recently, and I've just loved going through it. 12 modules, self-paced, with a safe sport certification at the end. It's backed by awesome coaches like Matt Fitzgerald, the founder, as well as coaches like you might know, Jim Vance. And yeah, just a fantastic one. If you're looking to get started, highly recommend it. Check it out in the description below. But starting off with the men's race.
This is hands down the hardest triathlon course I've ever seen.
Sam Long, Lionel Sanders, as well as Trevor Foley, they are going to be pounding it on the bike, coming down from a deficit on the swim. Trevor had one of his best swims ever at Ironman Texas, but sadly was suffering with some acute pains during the bike ride and ended up having to pull out there. Somehow has made it around back in time to be able to race this. So it'll be interesting to see where he's at. Some people were fearing he might have rhabdo, so it looks like he's gotten over that, which is good to hear. But yeah, Sam Long and Lionel.
And Sam, dude, this course suits them so well. Just like monster riders.
How much time will they lose to Magnus Ditlev out of the swim? That'll be the big question for me, because I don't really see them riding faster than him to be able to catch up to him. And then even though some people have said Magnus hasn't raced a 70.3 in several years, he has been racing T100 racing, which is even faster. So I think he'll be fine over this distance. And yeah, I think he's running better than he ever has right now. And he's had a great amount of time, I think, in between South Africa, which he performed so well at, and this race. I think he's not coming all the way over to the States if he doesn't think he can run with these guys. So I think he's the clear favorite to win this one, especially if he has a lead off the bike, and I think he will, especially if he can make it to that front pack of strong bikers that included the likes of Matthew Marquardt and Justin Miralle. And another one who will be there in the front pack as well is Max Newman, making his return. We never hear from this guy. He is so quiet on socials, but he's popped up on this start list as well as in Chattanooga next week, which, by the way, a lot of guys are backing up, like Sam Long and Jackson Laundry. But yeah, Max Newman, on his day, we've seen him beat Christian Blumenfeld. We've seen him get 4th in Kona. And yeah, I believe he had surgery. He's coming back from that. It's going to be so excited to see if he's back in the mix. Then on top of those guys, we've also got really interesting short course guys who have made the jump up to middle distance recently, the likes of Jacob Burtwhistle, who smashed the run in 70.3 Geelong, but also was doing so well in Oceanside, could arguably have charged Lionel there for the win if he didn't get the 2 to 3 minute penalty, I believe, there, which yeah, really set him back. So keep an eye out for him the most, but also Matt McElroy and Seth Ryder. Seth, impressive 4th there in Oceanside, still learning the distance, and Max had some success like at Indian Wells last year. So yeah, this is going to be a cracker from start to finish. Definitely some dark horses hidden there as well in that large start list, but for me, in my picks, I have to go with Magnus because of that perfect lead-in. I think after Ironman South Africa, he was so good there, beating Martin Van Riel. And I think just with him chasing the Pro Series this year, he wants every point he can get, knowing he is up against the likes of Christian Blumenfeld this year for that title. And then for me, I've got Sam Long in second. He is just looking so fired up in his latest video. He has the course record here, so much experience, so good at running on this style of tough course as well. And just hearing him thank Magnus for coming as well just makes me think he's not scared and really wants this win. And in third, I have gone with Jacob Burtwhistle. He impressed me so much in Geelong after just barely coming second to Yella Gaines there. And I think, yeah, in Oceanside, he was just as good. And I think with even more prep in the lead up to this one, I think he could even challenge Magnus here for the win. But that means I've left Lionel off the podium here. That's more a feeling than anything. Also, just his sickness there that he got after Oceanside and having to miss Texas. But I could be so wrong, and I bet so many of you will be picking him for the win here. But over to the women's side, and I think it's so good. We've got Chelsea Sodaro here back racing after missing Ironman Texas on her new Aventum bike. And she said she's had such a good set of training in the lead up with her coach Neil Henderson. So I think, especially after missing Texas, she'll be even more excited to do this one. And I think she can challenge Paula here. And we've seen Jackie as well challenge Paula at Oceanside. Just didn't quite have enough to take her down there on the run. I think those are the big three for this race. But otherwise, we've got some other really good names here. Danielle Lewis, we saw how close she came in Oceanside, but she did have issues in Texas that she's got to overcome, so we'll see how that goes. Lisa Pacheras, we saw her really change up the whole race on the Oceanside bike, getting a cap there. Then we've got Victoria Lopez, a short course athlete, uber swimmer. She's got 70.3 experience. She wasn't able to race in Oceanside. I think she could definitely mix it up here and is the dark horse for me. She's also got the likes of Lottie Willems here, which is another super strong swim biker that could take Victoria into a really good place to start the run. But then on to my picks, and I don't know why, but I have this feeling we're going to see Chelsea Sodaro of old, of 2022, And just the way she was talking about her lead into Texas got me inspired that she is in a really good spot. And especially if she was preparing for the full, was able to dial it back now without any of that fatigue in her legs towards the 70.3 distance. And I think with it being a tough run course, it'll give her the opportunity to lose a few minutes on the bike to the likes of Paula and still be able to run her down. And that's how I think she's going to do it. Also, the addition of the likes of Jocelyn McCauley back into this race, they are around the same swim strength, and so I think they'll be around each other on the bike. And I think having her to pace off of on the bike, Jocelyn I think will be pushing really hard. I think that could really assist Chelsea if it works out, and that could help her not lose so much time on the bike. But with that means I've got Paula in second place here. She absolutely loves St. George. She's performed so well so many times before here, so there's no reason to doubt she won't be either first or second. But third place was a little bit harder for me to pick. I think Victoria Lopez is the one who's going to mix it up here and have a super strong swim and bike, and then lose time on the run, but just have enough to hang on the podium. And that means I've got Jackie Herring just off in fourth place. But as always, I'm probably so off with these, and please do let me know yours down below. I was pretty close with Texas, I have to say, so I'm excited to see if I can back it up. Before I let you go, I have to mention this book that a longtime subscriber sent to me, called Nosebleeds and the MAGA Man. Don't worry, it's nothing political. It is a collection of short stories from this triathlete, Brock Gibbs, which is just hilarious and so relatable. And his previous book that he sent me was so good that I had to mention both of these to you, because if you're looking for something to read while you're on flights, traveling to training camps or to races, or if you just want to feel like you're part of the community and somebody else understands your struggles, both of them have left me tearing up of laughter, cracking up way too loud on flights, to the fact that I've actually had to put them aside and stop reading them for a little bit. So had to share them with you. You definitely should check them out. I'll put them in the description below. But thanks so much guys for watching. We'll see you after St. George.